One of the peculiar things about the end of Perashat Kiteseh going into Perashat Kitavo is that if you look at the last two misvot of Perashat Kiteseh, there's a stark contrast. The last mitzvah is one of those mitzvot that has a global, historical significance. It's almost like we're dealing here with the mitzvah that almost every Jew can connect with, almost every Jew can understand and can consider to be one of those almost mythological ideas and mythological concepts. I don't like the idea of mythology personally, but that's the way the mitzvah is perceived. And I'm talking about the mitzvah of Amalek, the mitzvah to remember, Zachor et asher asa lecha Amalek. Remember Amalek. Amalek is viewed by many as, one of those dark forces in the world, right? And when that dark force takes over, out comes Amalek. Amalek is the manifestation, is that nation which takes the lead on that dark force. So we are ordered to remember Amalek, to remember that there is this nation called Amalek, and that this nation called Amalek acts upon this dark force in the world. It's almost like, can you imagine a dream? And in the dream, you have a chessboard. And in the chessboard, you have these white pieces and dark pieces, and there is a battle, and the battle rages on from generation to generation to generation. And it's almost like a battle that just continues indefinitely, weaving its course through the annals of history. That's the mitzvah of Amalek, right? So remember Amalek, and remember what Amalek did to you, but more importantly, understand that Amalek is not just some fleeting memory in the past, but it continues in the present and all the way to the faraway future. That's the last mitzvah. In contrast, the penultimate mitzvah is almost the exact opposite. I want to read to you the Pesukim. It says, Lo yeh lecha bechisecha even va'avin gedola u'ktana. You should not have in your pocket two sizes of weights, a small one and a large one. I want to explain what that means so that you can appreciate the meaning of the mitzvah, because nevertheless it is important to know this mitzvah. So you have, for example, to think about antiquity. So a person goes to the shuk, he wants to buy barley seeds. So he wants a pound of barley seeds. So he has in his pocket, he has a pound. So he gives it to the seller. He says, I have this pound, weigh for me a pound of barley. So you put the pound on one side of the scale, and then you weigh barley on the other side. And of course, when there's an equilibrium between the two sides of the scale, that's a pound of barley, because this stone weighs a pound. So the Torah says you can't have 2 pounds, right? Meaning a small pound and a large pound. So when you buy barley, you use the large pound. Of course, it's more than a pound. So you're paying for a pound of barley, but you're getting, let's say, a pound and a third of barley, for example. And then you have a small pound, right? So what's a small one? The small one is, now you're going to be selling. So to sell, you're selling a pound, supposedly. You're not selling a pound. You're selling 0.9 pounds, right? 0.8 pounds of barley, but you're saying you're selling a pound. So lo yeh lecha bechisecha even va'avin gedola u'ktana. Similarly, lo yeh lecha bebetecha efa ve'efa. A similar thing for volume measure. So you want to buy, let's say, a quart of wine, or sell a quart of wine. So your quart measure, you have 2 quart measures, right? One a little more than a quart, one a little less than a quart. When you buy the wine, you say, oh, this is a quart, I want to buy a quart. How much do you sell a quart for? Sure, and the seller fills it up for you, right? You're getting more than a quart, but you're only paying for a quart. But on the other hand, when you sell the wine, you have a smaller quart measure, and you tell the buyer, oh, yeah, let me measure a quart for you, and you take out your quart, and it's really not a quart. So this is forbidden, but here's the thing. So that's the second. That's a penultimate mitzvah. That's a penultimate mitzvah. But I want to explain the penultimate mitzvah a little more clearly because perhaps we don't fully appreciate what it's about. Now, here's the thing. The prohibition is not merely to engage in this type of deceptive and dishonest behavior. Actually, the prohibition is to merely own these two sizes, two stones, or two weights, right? Each says a pound on it, but one is more than a pound, one is less than a pound. The isur de oraita is to actually own it, just to have it. The mere possession, or you have the two courts, a large court and a small court, right? The mere possession, it says, lo yelecha bevetecha, just to have it in your house. It's isur de oraita. Are you understanding this? And there aren't a lot of things that we can say that about. For example, if a person had non-kosher food in his house, not the chas v'sholom, not we're talking about a person who eats non-kosher food, but he has it. You know, a maid comes in, has non-kosher food. There's very few things where we say it's forbidden to have this in your house. You know, for example, avodah zarah. We don't want to have avodah zarah in our house, right? Of course not, right? So you're not going to have avodah zarah in the house. It's a horrible avirah. Here, the mere possession of these objects is considered a to'eva. It's an abomination. Okay, that's heavy. Not a lot of things are an abomination. Avodah zarah is an abomination. Okay. So now, here's a question. We have this, I said, this mitzvah of Amalek, which I says takes on sometimes mythological dimensions. And then we have this mitzvah about, you know, when you're in the shuk and, you know, conducting business and you're buying and you're selling, you know, don't own these two size stones. Here's the question. Well, what's the connection? I mean, the lead-in to this incredible mitzvah of Amalek, the lead-in is odd. Why is that the lead-in to the mitzvah, right? So I think the connection is absolutely profound. I mean, it is so profound that really, when I spoke about this in my synagogue on Shabbat, people came to me and said, Rabbi, please, can you please make a video about this? We don't ask this about, please make a video about this. I said, I'll make the video. And here it is. What is it that instigates this nation that we call Amalek to pop out from the horizon, and suddenly there he is, and he attacks the Jewish people? He's not always visible, right? For example, in the story of Purim, we had Haman Ha'agagi, that was Amalek. But before the story of Purim, and after the story of Purim, Amalek was kind of somewhere beneath the surface, right? The dark force is always there. But what is it that causes this nation to act upon that dark force? What is it? And the answer is, Lo yihye lecha bechisecha even va'aven, lo yihye lecha bebetecha efa ve'efa. Do you know what causes Amalek to come out? When chas v'shalom, God forbid, the Jewish people are dishonest in business. When the Jewish people have two sets of weights, when the Jewish people have two volume measures, a large one and a small one, they cheat when they buy goods, they cheat when they sell goods, they're dishonest, they don't have integrity, and it shows, and people know it. And when that happens, bar minan, chas v'shalom, we should not know this, but when that happens, we are actually not just being dishonest in business. When that happens, when we act without integrity, when we act deceptively, when we cheat, and it doesn't matter if you're cheating a goy or cheating a Jew, when we cheat in business, we are not just cheating and harming the person who does business with us, we are instigating Amalek to come out and say, I'm now going to attack the Jewish people. When we don't follow the law of Lo yelecha bechisecha even va'aven, then the next law comes into place, which is Zachor et asher asa alecha Amalek, because you better remember carefully. You better remember carefully, because you have to understand Amalek can do terrible things to the Jewish people, and he has done terrible things to the Jewish people. And if you don't get things right in business, then you are a primary cause in bringing out Amalek. This is a lesson I studied in Eretz Israel. And, when I first studied this lesson, I was, that's interesting. It sounds nice, it sounds almost mystical. And, I put it in the back of my brain and I let it stay there. And then about 6 months ago, the following incident took place. And when this incident took place, I said, wow, this is exactly what the Torah meant. And I'm not judging the people, by the way. I'm not judging the characters in the story. Please do not get me wrong. I certainly do not condone anti-Semitism. I certainly do not justify anti-Semitism. I certainly do not believe that anti-Semites are in the least bit correct in their approach, that they have a right to hate. I don't condone or agree with any of that. What I'm doing to you now is I'm just going to describe the story. And as I describe the story, you will see how the Pesukim in the Torah are absolutely correct. And the story is as follows. I purchased a lawnmower for my lawn, and the lawnmower required gas. So we got onto Amazon, and we needed to buy a container, a plastic container, so that we can purchase gas from the gas station and then use this canister to bring the gas from the gas station to the house, backyard, and then fill up the lawnmower. So that was the plan. So we got onto Amazon. I don't remember the exact price, but I think the canister was something in the area of about $10. The problem was it wasn't going to show up for another week. We didn't want to wait a week. So decided to drive to a gas station. The gas station had a convenience store. We saw the exact same canister in the convenience store. We're like, great, right here. Today we're buying it. So we go, we ask, what the price is. It ends up, it's 250% the price, 2.5 times the price of what Amazon was selling it for. Again, I don't remember the exact price, but it was something like $10 at Amazon, $25 in the convenience store. So my wife got a little, she was like talking to the cashier. Says, God, look, what are you doing here? Like, why are you selling it so expensive? Why do you have to, we understand we want to make some profit. It's okay. Mark it up by 50% even, but 250% mark, that's ridiculous. Anyway, the cashier told my wife, I'm sorry, I know the owner is a Jew. He marks up all his prices. I was in the car, by the way, so he didn't realize that my wife is because if I would have been there, he would have seen my kippah. So I'm kind of in the car, and anyway, so my wife is like complaining a little about it, but then, the cashier says what he says, and then there's 2 other people there, and they're talking with my wife, not realizing, of course, that she's Jewish, and says, yeah, anytime we go to a Jewish store, these Jews, they always jack up the prices. Right? Now, these people, they weren't lovers of Zion. I can tell you that. My wife said they were clearly anti-Semites. Their attitude was an anti-Semitic attitude. They didn't like Jews. I don't think we need more commentary than that. But we do need to understand one final thing. And it's really important. So why is it that when Jews are dishonest in business, we're kind of like turning on the switch, right? So there's a switch, it's usually down, it's off, the dark force is under the surface, Amalek is there in potential, but not in actuality. And suddenly Jews are dishonest in business, as the Torah as the Torah does intimate, and that brings out Amalek. Well, why? What's the connection between those 2 things? When you think about cause and effect, I'd like to see something that explains it. And I believe I see the explanation, and it's clear in my mind. Let's go back to that chessboard. So you have this battle between the pieces going on, between the white pieces and the dark pieces, and the battle is from generation to generation. It's a mythological battle. Well, the dark beasts, they're Amalek, but they represent the forces of evil. They represent the forces that says, we do not want all Malchut Shamayim. We do not want a king above us. The king, of course, being God. They want to be the kings. They don't want God to be the king. We do not want the kingdom of God, right? We want chaos. We want anarchy. We want people rioting in the streets and mobs, because when we have mobs in the street, it leads to the breakdown of society. And then at that point, a dictator can come in and he can take control of the population, and now he controls them. So these are the dark forces. This is Amalek. Amalek doesn't want God, because when you have God, you have law, you have the Torah, you have certain principles, you have rules, you have certain also idea of respect, and the norms. They allow society to function in an efficient and bountiful manner, bountiful for all. And then on the other side of the chessboard, you have the white pieces. Those are the forces of good. And those are the people who say, that's Am Yisrael, there is a God in the world. Follow his Torah. If you follow his Torah, this will bring bounty to the world. God will protect humanity. God wants to protect humanity. And when you have these good the good forces, or rather the good people, Am Yisrael, speaking like this, they're not just speaking like that for themselves, but they're speaking like that for all of humanity. They want humanity to be ruled by certain laws, by certain Torah, by certain mitzvot, Sheva mitzvot beneno, the 7 Noahide laws, right? So that's the battle. Am Yisrael represents God, represents the fact that humanity should be ruled by the laws of God, and that if humanity is ruled by the laws of God, everything is going to be blessed. Everything is going to work out as it should work out. On the other hand, you have Amalek. He says, no, we don't need a God. We need a dictator. We need a dictator, and the dictator will take care of us. So those are the two models. Here's the thing. When Jews cynically raise the prices, when Jews are caught in Borough Park, as I recently saw that video, it was, I think, for 2-3 months, probably 3 months ago, maybe even longer, when the coronavirus first broke out and the FBI broke into somebody's house because he had, I don't know how many, boxes and boxes and boxes of masks that he apparently obtained illegally. And what a chilul Hashem that was. When Jews act like this, cynically, to make money, what they're really saying is they don't believe in the rules. The Torah says, lo tignov. Who doesn't know that? The Torah does not allow people to act dishonestly with each other. And when you act dishonestly, you're saying, I don't believe in God. I don't have faith in God. Or my faith in God is so little that I can't put my money where my mouth is. My faith in God goes to the point that I'll go to the synagogue and pray to him, but when I'm in my office, I'll do whatever the heck I need to survive, because he ain't helping me. And if I follow his rules, it's going to be bad news. That's the message. I own a convenience store. I need to rip off people by charging them such ridiculous prices. The message I'm sending is, I do not believe that God helps honest people. I do not believe that God helps hard-working people. Therefore, I need to deceive. I need to cheat. I need to price gouge. That message is received by Amalek. It's registered by Amalek, and Amalek becomes infuriated. You're preaching about God. You have your synagogues, you have your rabbis, you have your cantors, and when you're in your offices and when you're in the real world, you cheat us in business. So you don't really believe in God. So it's all one big farce. That's the way Amalek sees it. I'm not saying it's a farce. I want to be clear about this. I'm just stepping back for 1 second. I am not saying it's a farce. I understand that human personality is a very complex thing. I totally get that. And I understand that people have all types of forces and all types of issues, and we don't always act consistently, and that's okay. I'm telling you what Amalek says. So getting back to Amalek, acting the role of Amalek, Amalek says this is a farce. These people are a nuisance. They don't even believe in what they're preaching. They cheat us to make money, and then they'll go to their synagogues and talk about God. Amalek comes out and he attacks the Jewish people. I just think this is such an important lesson. There's this joke that I heard recently in the yeshiva world, and it really is tragic, and I don't understand it. So the joke goes something like this. A guy brings food from the house to the yeshiva. He goes home for Shabbat. He comes back to the yeshiva in Bnei Brak, and he has like a little, in the kitchen, he has a place in the closet. He says this food belongs to Yankel Mendel. Okay, so Yankel Mendel puts his name on it. Anyway, a day or two later, he opens up his bag. He sees that somebody took from his food. So the next week, again, he comes back from home, and he puts another sign that says, this food belongs to Yankel Mendel. Please do not touch the food. And again, a few days come and go, and he sees people are still taking from his food. A few people are taking from the food because there's a lot of stuff missing. Third week comes, and he says, please do not touch this food. If you touch this food, you are guilty of lo tignov. And again, a few days pass, and people continue taking from his food because what the heck, it's there in the kitchen, and what is the big deal? It's just his food. So they say. Finally, completely frustrated, and at wit's end, Yankel Mendel comes back from Shabbat in his house. He comes to the yeshiva, and this time he puts on the thing, he puts on the thing, this food does not have the rabbinic certification of the Khatam Sofer. The Khatam Sofer is a very strong rabbinic certification in Bnei Brak. Everybody in Bnei Brak eats only Khatam Sofer. He says, this food does not have the rabbinic certification of Khatam Sofer. And nobody ever again touches Yankel Mendel's food. That's the story. It's a true story. I don't know if that specific incident took place, but it's a true story. All you'll hear about all the time from all the rabbinic establishment is the level of kashrut, and his kashrut is no good, and that kashrut is terrible, and this guy didn't pay for his kashrut certificate, and we took it away from him, and you can't eat there anymore. But all for the highest standards of kashrut. Of course, 100%. Follow the Shulchan Aruch, follow Harambam, follow the of course. And yet, when it comes to other issues, to gezel, to dishonesty in business, to bringing the wrong product, to bringing a cheaper product, right? To diluting what you're giving the people, that's completely irrelevant, especially if the rabbinic establishment itself engages in this type of deceptive behavior. I remember I once went to a store somewhere in Israel. It was a restaurant. I wanted a cup of coffee. I saw there was no kashrut. I'm talking to the owner of the store, and I realized he's a good person. I can tell he was religious. I could tell he had he had a little kippah on his head. He was Shomer Shabbat. We're talking no, there was no interest there. We're just kind of having a conversation. Irreligious people in Israel are not embarrassed to say they're irreligious. And we're talking. He's Masorati. He does Kiddush Friday nights. I finally go to him. I say, look, tell me, why don't you have kashrut in your restaurant? It's your restaurant. He says, I want you to know, I would never, ever sell anything unkosher in my restaurant. There's nothing here that's not kosher. I said, okay, so get kashrut. That sounds good. So go for it. He says he did go for it. He said he used to go to the kashrut authorities in his city, and they were constantly finding reasons why he had to give them more money. First, he needed money for the mashgiach to come, and he said, no problem. And then they needed other money for other things. And finally it came, there was one time when he needed a piece of paper. He needed a new piece of paper to put on his restaurant because the old one expired. And this is after paying all of the various fees and all of the various licenses. And for the piece of paper, they wanted 5,000 shekels. And he says, you know what? This is thievery. This is just complete thievery. He said, I'm not doing it anymore. And he withdrew the kashrut from his store. But he told me at the personal level, I want you to know, I would never, ever. He said, I ate kosher food in my parents' house. I served kosher food in my house. I would never serve non-kosher food in my own restaurant. It wouldn't happen. But he didn't want to have anything to do with the rabbinic authorities. That's it, right there. You want to know why we have Amalek in the world? That's the reason. But the minute that the Jewish people, they act with integrity, the minute that the Jewish people, they look at the Jews, the Goyim, and they say, wow, these people, they have so much character. They really practice what they preach. These people are the most honest people. They are straight as a ruler. When they look at us that way, you will see how Amalek will be completely eradicated. And the sooner, the better, on both fronts. On us making teshuvah as a people, and Amalek getting wiped out.